Hi everybody, my name is Shubha and I'm Dot Mandala Artist, and I wanted to bring up today my first tutorial where I will be talking about what I use. This tutorial is basically for people who are just getting started, beginners who are probably watching some of the videos online on the social media, YouTube, and then they don't know where to get started and they're scrambling their head. So this video will definitely help them. I'm going to share what I use, and I won't say I'm a beginner. I'm kind of advanced in the last 1 year, but yes, I'm still learning, and I will be continuing to learn all my life. So this is a favorite art form of mine, and I am just so much loving the process, loving it, love every piece that I make, and of course I plan to grow with every piece that I make. So let's get started. So I'm going to talk today about the surfaces that we use for dotting and prepping the surfaces. How do you prep the surfaces? What do you do in order to get started? I'm going to talk about the tools, dotting tools, and pretty much everything that I use in order to make my dots really nice. And then paint, what kind of paints I use, and I will talk about some of the brands that I have used, and some pros and cons of those brands. And of course, this is just by my experience, nothing more than that. And also at the end, we're going to talk about how to seal your artwork so that they don't lose the color over time, and you have to continue to seal them every so often. So let's get started. The first one is we're going to talk about the surfaces that we use to paint with the dots. Okay, so the surfaces, as you can see, this artwork, this is one piece that I'm actually in the process of making, but these actually are just round boards. If you can see, these come as unfinished round boards. I get these from Amazon typically, but if you are in a area where you get local stores. So I live in the US, and I very often go to Michael's, Dollar Tree for some seasonal cutouts. I also shop on Etsy for MDF boards. So yes, there are a ton of these shops around, so you can check out. So if you're not in the United States, then you'll have to check out your area to see where they are selling these cutouts. So every piece is different. Every cutout could be different. They come in different thicknesses. So let me switch my camera so you can see. These cutouts come in different thicknesses. This is 1/8 thickness. The board that I'm currently painting, this is a joined two 1/8 boards, which I have actually joined together to get a little more thicker, because this is a bigger piece of artwork. I also paint on these fridge magnets. This is some bookmarks that are coming up, and this is one of the coffee mugs that I have painted in some time ago. Easter eggs, and some of the fridge magnets that I have prepared. Evil Eye is just my favorite, as you can tell. This is another bookmark that I'm finishing almost. This is another bookmark in metallic colors. As you can see, the colors just are amazing. So I'm going to talk about the colors as well. And this is one just latest piece. This is incense stick holder that I just finished, not finished yet. I'm just, I finished dotting on it. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the surfaces that you can dot on, and you will get pretty much everything on Amazon or Etsy or eBay. Just shop around and see where you get cheaper stuff. I've also done some of the, like pen stands. So something like this. And you can also try dotting on pebbles, and this came out really nice. And this is my first pebble actually, so I'm basically very attached to such ones. This is a pot, plant pot, so I painted on that. There are others that I plan to. So these are some of the rocks that you get, pebbles that you get outside. So I picked them and I painted in the base coat, and hopefully I will dot them as well. And there are other items as well. So anyways, so these are some of the items that you can think to dot on. So basically you can dot on anything, literally anything. You pick up, let's say you you have this paint bottle, you pick up a paint bottle, rip off all the covering and start dotting on it, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong in dotting on any surface that you think you can try your hands on. Okay, so that's about the surfaces that we use. Typically they should be wood, but if they're not wood, as I said, you can paint on glass. Like you can see this coffee mug. This is a coffee mug, like typical coffee mug, but I'm also going to talk about how to seal the paint so that they don't come off while you wash them, like dishwash them and stuff. So yeah, I mean, any surface can be dotted. Just you have to pick the right type of paint so that they don't come off from that surface. So there are paints like multi-surface paints that you can use on any surface, and there are other paints specifically for glass or for chalk paints, or paints which are suitable for outdoors. So you can try figure out what you really want to dot on and then go for the paint. Okay, so now prepping the surface. So I'll tell you how I prep surfaces. So there is something called as gesso. This is a black gesso that that I generally use. There's also white gesso. Gesso will actually, it is an acrylic paint, acrylic medium, I would say. What this does is this preps the surface. So if you look at these, wood finishes, these are unfinished surfaces. So just turn them around and you'll see these are really unfinished. Like they're not, they will have rough edges, and they will have, if you touch them, you will see some grainy texture. And what happens is if you start painting directly on these surfaces, you will see a lot of paint gets soaked into the surface, and they may warp. And also sometimes when you drop the paint to form the dots, you will see the dots are not holding their shape. They're just spreading, or they're just not coming as a round shape. So that's why you need to typically prep your surface with black gesso or white gesso or colorless gesso. And then once that gets dried up, then you need to sand it using a sandpaper. Just sand the surface really nicely, and then put another layer of gesso. And then after it dries, you paint it with the base color. So now this one typically, most of the mandala art that you will see are painted with black base color. That's because black just gives you a good base for the other colors to pop up. But you can also use other base colors, like this one is a blue that I'm going to try my hands on. I have also painted some of the bookmarks in blue base color. So this is one bookmark that I'm just finishing up, and then there are other bookmarks. This is I painted on burgundy. So yeah, I mean, you can see same typical colors will show up differently on a black background versus on a different background. So you can try these things, but make sure to prep your surface first with gesso, and then paint the base color, and then get started. But make sure all your paint layers are dried thoroughly. They are not wet to touch. Okay, so they should be dried thoroughly before you start your next level of color, next layer of color. Okay, coming to the tools that I use. Okay, so I use, so you will probably, you will probably see some dotting tools that people talk about. So these are some of the dotting tools that I use, and I'll tell you why I use these and what are these basically used for. So as you can see, these dowel sticks, so these are for thicker dots or bigger dots, but these are fixed size dowel sticks. Let me yeah, so if you can see, so these are fixed size dowel sticks, and they are for fixed dots. So there are two kinds of dots. There's one kind of dot which is like fixed size, like if you want to see this, so these bigger dots, they're all fixed size, right? And then there are designs where you actually walk the dot. See, you have walked the dots, and this design, you will see it starts from a bigger dot and then smaller and then smaller, and then they are getting smaller and smaller. So that's how the designs, we call them walking the dots. So for walking the dots, we use tools like this. So I don't know if you can see. Yeah, we use tools like this. Okay, so they have, so what happens is when you dip the tool into the paint and then start dotting, every time you dot, there's a little bit of color that comes off of it, and then there's less color remaining in that tool, and then that's how you can walk the dot, so that every dot you paint, they get smaller and smaller. That's why we call it walking the dots. So these are two kinds of tools that I use for dotting, and then I use this one for paint mixing. If you want to, mix two paints, two shades to make a different shade, so you can do that. And then this is a brush, thicker brush that I use for painting the base color. I also use ruler that I use for painting gesso, prepping the surface. And then you will see some of the, so if you look at these, you'll see these guidelines, the white chalk guidelines. So what I do is I use a pencil like this. It's a white chalk pencil. White charcoal pencil or white chalk pencil or white watercolor pencils, anything you can use. And I use protractor and ruler. Okay, so I've also got a question from someone just a few days back saying that should we use stencils? Long answer short is yes, you can use stencils, and I do have a few stencils that I use occasionally, but these stencils are very limiting. So if you're looking for creating some designs which which are primarily something unique, like if you look at these stencils, these are marked very set, like these are set degrees. So this is 90 degree, and then 90 is divided into 4 different parts, so you get certain degrees out of every section. But what if you want to make a design like this where you're not dividing the same way, you're probably dividing it like the inner one is into 6 and outer one is also into 6, so 6, 6, 12. So the 360 degree is divided into 12 portions. Whereas if you look at these stencils, they're probably not that way. Like if you're lucky, you get stencil exactly of those measurements. But eventually, you will see that you're more comfortable with using a protractor and a ruler and pencil. That's pretty much it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how to go about exactly getting started with these just in a few bit, or maybe in the next video. So I don't know how long this video is going to go on for, but if it gets too long, then maybe it's coming up in the next one. So this is about the tools that I use. Okay, so we covered the surfaces that we use for dotting, then we covered prepping the surfaces, then we covered the tools. We talked about stencils, you know, the sides, the protractors, the scale, the pencil, eraser, of course. You will need erasers to, erase. At the end of your artwork, after you're done, you will still see these guidelines show up. So you can take a wet cloth and just wipe off, because acrylic, once dried, it won't come off, but what will come off is the white charcoal color, or if you're using a white watercolor pencil, that is even easier to come off. So take a wet cloth and just wipe off these. So I'm going to demonstrate that as one of my upcoming videos as well. Okay, so coming to paint, what type of paints do I use? Oh, I should also mention that we will talk about brushes as well, because if you see this design or any other design that you can look up, some of these are done by brushes. These are not dotting. These are swooshes, so again, this one. So these are swooshes. So we will need brush, fine point brush to do the swooshes. So we'll do one of those tutorials on swooshes as well. And I'm planning to come up with my own practice material so that you can practice the swooshes, because I've heard from people that I do the swooshes pretty well, and that's what inspired me to come up with something like that, so that everybody can practice those swooshes on their own. Okay, of course, you need a sharpener that will sharpen the charcoal pencils. What else? Okay, so let's talk about the paints that I use, and I'm going to talk about some of the brands that I have used in the past, and some of the do's and don'ts, pros and cons of these brands. Okay, so these are some of the paints that I've used. Okay, so the most effective and the easiest paint that I would say I would recommend for you guys to start off with is, okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, so is the Deco Art Americana brand. Okay, oh, this is switched. Let me switch to this. Okay, so this is the Deco Art Americana brand, and this is easily available in stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and all those. And if you don't get them there, a particular shade that you're looking for, you can get them in Amazon as well. Why I say that this is the easiest paint, because paint consistency is very important. So remember, you are not painting on the surface, you're actually dropping the blobs of the paint on the surface. So I do have one video that I'll probably share in my shorts, where I actually demonstrate how you're dropping the dots, dropping the color paint on the surface. You're not painting or you're not touching the surface at all. So because that drop has to hold its shape, this brand will actually help you get started with that attribute, okay, that practice. So definitely go about this to get started with. Now there are other brands like Craft Smart, easily available here, and they're a little cheaper than Deco Art. There's also called as Folk Art, which I don't have it to demonstrate here. Folk Art is a little thicker paint. So thicker the paint, you won't be able to drop that paint on the surface, and that's when you will struggle. You'll probably touch the surface, and then when you lift your tool, you will see there is, it's uneven surface of the paint, and then it dries very ugly. So you'll have to be careful about what paint you're using. So yeah, so talking about the Craft Smart, this is very runny paint. It's good. It's great for getting started for other kind of artwork and crafts. But if you're using, if you have these and you're thinking to use them for your dotting projects, I would recommend. I would really recommend you to use something like this, which is gel. This is, I don't know if you can see. Okay, there it is. This is thickening agent, thickening gel, and this is just clear gel. So you take a little blob of this and take the paint and mix them together. If the paint is too runny, mix them together, and then you'll get that exact consistency of paint to drop it on the surface. So yeah, and then talking about these tubes, they are great as well, but they are thick. Okay, they're not, you cannot use them right out of the tube or right out of the bottle. So what I recommend is, if you're using one of these tubes, then use thinning medium, or you can also look for pouring medium. Pouring medium will not dilute the paint like water, but they will just add a little gel-like texture to the paint, also thin the paint so that you get the right consistency. And also there are other paints. If you have seen these paints around, you will see the paints which are typically in hard tubes. They are very heavy bodied, so be aware that those tube paints are not suitable for mandala art. Okay, so if you're using these heavy bodied, I've actually used heavy bodied paints for some of my projects. I've tried thinning them as well, but for whatever reason they did not give me the satisfaction that I was looking for from the original Deco Art brand. So yeah, I mean, if you're using these heavy bodied paint, you'll have to thin them quite much using the pouring medium. But I would suggest, if you're getting started, really a beginner, do not use them. Just stay away from these heavy bodied paints. You don't need that extra hassle. So this is about the paints. Yeah, and then talking about sealing material. So after you're done with your artwork, then you need to seal your artwork. So sealing is done by something like this. I use Liquitex. I got this from Hobby Lobby. The sticker is still on. This is high gloss varnish. You can also use matte varnish, and there's also satin varnish. So you can use these varnishes to seal your paint. There's also, you can try resin coating, thin coating of a resin on these artwork to make them even more, strong and seal the artwork really, really nicely. And resin is also waterproof, so you can wash those artwork as well. There is another thing called as Mod Podge. I don't have the bottle around right now, and so Mod Podge is also very good. So you can use Mod Podge especially for these mugs. So these mugs, they are they need to be washed. They need to be really like nicely washed in dishwasher. Sometimes if you're using them hand washing, yes, definitely you will need them to be really nicely sealed. So Mod Podge is the way to go. So you put a layer of Mod Podge and then let it dry. Mod Podge looks actually very whitish, but then it dries transparent. So you put a layer of Mod Podge and then let it dry, and then you're done. Natural sealing on the coffee mugs, I have also heard of, and people say that you just paint it, leave it on for 21 days, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, and then just let it naturally seal. So that also works with coffee mugs. But honestly, I wouldn't want to take a chance because I have a toddler and I really can't take a chance. So I would say, if you're worried about your artwork and also like over the time, it loses color. The shades might just fade away or something. So why don't you use Mod Podge and seal it? Okay. So that's pretty much it, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today, and I really loved talking to you guys. And just let me know in the comment section what all videos you want me to bring up. I have a few ones lined up, some process videos that I'm thinking to bring up as time lapse or real time process, or just getting started, doing a project together. So definitely those are in my mind, but definitely let me know what other videos you would want me to bring up. And if you have any questions, do mention them in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon in my next video. Bye bye.